All right. Hello and welcome to our Grow Solar Lynn and Johnson County Solar Power Hour at the Green Iowa and Iowa City Parks and Rec Department Earth Fest 2021. Thank you for having us, and we're really excited to be here to share our program with you today. So my name is Marta Monti, and I work with the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, and I'm going to be telling you all about our program today. So Grow Solar Lynn and Johnson Counties is a group purchasing solar program for Lynn and Johnson County homeowners, commercial property owners, and farm owners. It is offered by 9 of our city partners and the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. And it's open to homeowners throughout Johnson County, West Branch, Iowa, and Lynn counties to pool their buying power and secure significant discounts to make installing solar more affordable on your home or property. So I've broken today's session up into 5 parts. First, I'm going to give you some background on what exactly a group buy program is. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the MREA and our history on facilitating these programs throughout the Midwest. And then next, we're going to cover kind of the basics of solar 101, how a solar array works and what it looks like, its components, and how it interacts with the utility grid at large. After that, we're going to talk about some options and considerations you should think about when building solar on your property. And then the last 2 sections of the presentation, I'm going to bring together what we learned so far and get a better understanding of the costs and incentives that are associated with putting up an array. And then finally, we're going to wrap it up by talking about how to begin your solar journey. And yeah, so that's what we're going to cover today. So now that you have a better idea of what we're going to talk about why we're here today. We believe that we can help create more sustainable communities by taking what can be a complex topic and simplifying it so you can make smart decisions about your energy future. So what exactly is a group buy? It has 5 key components. And so first, let's go through those. First, our contractor for our programs are competitively selected through a bid process that's led by the MREA and helped by a local advisory committee. This allows us to get a high quality solar installation at a competitive price. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Second, the only way a program like this is successful is through community-led outreach. We rely real heavily on community members to help get the word out about the program. So that means you. If you like what you hear today, please spread the word and tell your friends about it. Third, a group buy, one of the key components is that it's a limited time offering. Putting a deadline on a program like this helps to incentivize participation. So interested parties must sign a contract with our selected installer for the program before August 31st of this year to get our competitive program pricing. And we'll talk more about that pricing in a little bit, but for a group buy, just know that having a deadline prevents delaying participation. Fourth, this program has a strong customer education component. So our solar power hours, such as this, are an example. Delivering all of the information up front in this format helps bring down the soft costs of solar installation. It helps the installer get the education to the customer ahead of time. And it really helps you by giving you all the information you need to make an informed decision that would probably take you a couple of weeks to gather on your own. And lastly, the last key point of what a group buy is that the economies of scale. With community-led outreach and group purchase, it creates an economy of scale, which helps lower the price for everyone. And we'll kind of explain how that works out through the program just in a little bit. But ultimately, with this program design, we feel that everyone wins because you get a lower cost solar, the installer gets a steady flow of business, and the community benefits by moving closer to its sustainability goals. So we being the MREA, started facilitating these programs back in 2013 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And as you can see on the map here in the back, we have facilitated about 42 of these programs in 5 Midwestern states to date. educating over 10,000 people about solar and solar opportunities, and generating over 14 megawatts of clean, renewable solar energy. So if we take those tenets of what a group buy is and we apply it to the Lynn and Johnson County areas, what does that mean? You can really see that our program started in 2018 in the area and has really only grown since then. And what that means is that we apply those 5 key tenets of the group buy to our programs here. And the programs are all in. We call them turnkey programs. So that means that program pricing includes design, permitting, components, installation, pretty much everything you would need to get your solar installation up and running. So before we get any further, I want to tell you just a little bit more about who the MREA is. We are an educational organization that promotes renewable energy through courses in solar PV, solar thermal, small wind, and other renewable energies like that. We were founded in 1990 by a group of individuals who read an article in a magazine called Home Power, which is now defunct. But basically the article was an invitation to take a call to action in support of sustainability. So the group got together and hosted its first renewable energy and sustainability fair in 1990. And the MREA has continued the tradition ever since and hosted an energy fair every year, except for the last 2. And hopefully next year we'll be able to get together and resume our tradition when it's safe again. So the final decision on whether to contract with a solar installer is ultimately up to you. But the MREA and the program partners have no legal responsibility or liability for the performance of any contract between the installer and the customer. We're just, we help facilitate and make it happen. Because really our philosophy is that the more solar, the better. And education is always the first step. And we find that our programs are more successful when we pair them with an offering such as this, where you can take action right away after you've gotten the information that you need. So whether you go solar now or in 5 years, we just hope you gain a better understanding of the technology through this program. All right, so now let's get into the nitty-gritty of solar and talk about Solar 101. First, we have to talk about some terminology and some terms we're going to be hearing a lot. Let's talk about the difference between a kilowatt means 5 kilowatts per instant. It's also the way to describe the size or the rating of your system. So you might get a 5.6 kilowatt array on your home. And then a kilowatt hour is the power used over time. So kilowatt hours are what shows up on your energy bills. So it's important to know the difference. Okay, so now you're looking at a map that shows the distribution of sunlight across the US. This is a radiance map. So if you look at this map, the areas in red receive the most amount of sunlight. Yellow receives less, with green, blue, and purple receiving the least amount of sunlight each year. But the big question is, but we live in Iowa, do we get enough sunlight to make solar power viable? The answer is yes. Overall, in the continental United States, there's plenty of sunlight to supply enough power to make solar on your home make sense. And you'll notice that there's a small inset map of Germany here on the right side. And you can tell by the gloomy purples and blues that they receive much less sunlight than most of the United States. Yet they have led the world in the number of solar installations, with the goal to generate 50% of their power by 2030. So obviously the amount of sun you get is dependent upon a lot of factors like shade, available spots to put your panels. But the good news is overall, Iowa gets plenty of sunlight for solar. Also, this is something that's covered by your solar installer when they come to do a site assessment on your house. I mean, you can get a good idea ahead of time, if you have a lot of big trees that are shading your roof, you can tell that it's not going to be maybe a good spot there, but they can come and do an assessment of your site and give you the full workup. Now let's take a look at the basic configuration of a solar PV array. Here's some basic background. So first, photons come in from the sun and hit the solar array, and the collection of panels is called or modules, and that's where they hit. So the electrons in the solar panels, once they hit that, they get excited and they start dancing around and they create direct current or DC electricity. From there, an inverter converts that direct current to alternating current or AC electricity, and that's the power that's used in your home. And then the energy that you produce is moved through an electric meter, and what's not needed for use in your house is directed to the utility grid. So as you can see here, you don't have any moving parts with your solar modules, which means that there's very little to break. So generally, solar panels come with a 25-year warranty, and it varies on panel to panel, what ultimately you choose. That's something the installer will go over with you. Also something to note, while the efficiency rating of your panels will slowly decrease over the years, many panels are still effectively producing electricity well past the age of 30 years. All right, so you notice that in the last slide, there was an inverter. So now let's talk a little bit more about what inverters are and what they do. They are really the heart of your solar array, or the brain. They do a lot of the heavy lifting. So what you see here is a string inverter on this slide. String inverters are built to maximize the amount of power coming out from each string on the solar panel. So this design works really well on sunny locations. However, shading on one of the panels or shading on even one of the panels will affect the efficiency and output of the entire array. So there are a couple solutions to this. If you have a little shade that can help maximize the power output of your solar panels. And those are called microinverters and power optimizers. They maximize the power coming from each solar panel so that shading of any portion of the array does not impact the rest of the array's production. So first, microinverters have an inverter on each individual panel, and power optimizers have an optimizer on each panel that are all connected to a central inverter, as you can see on the bottom here. Power optimizers are an effective option because they are highly efficient. They tend to cost less than microinverters, and they have fewer instances of component failure. And if you go solar through our program, the installer Eagle Point Solar can help you determine which module is right for you. Another cool thing about inverters now is that you can use them to monitor your array's output in real time. So there's an app that you can download and get connected to your solar array, and you can see just how much power your panels are producing at any given time. All right, so next we're going to talk about grid tied versus off grid. People often immediately connect the concept of solar to the concept of going off grid and using battery backups. Folks can choose their own path when it comes to solar. And if it's an off-grid system you want, that is something that the solar installer can work with you to set up. However, this presentation and our program assumes that everyone is getting a grid interactive system. And there are several reasons for this. In a grid tied system, your solar system provides power to your home, and then any excess electricity generated beyond your energy usage is delivered back to the grid. So if your solar PV system is not producing enough energy to meet your needs, say for example at night when there is no sun, then you'll be using electricity from the grid. Also, grid tied is the least expensive type of system to install. It also allows for something called net metering, which is kind of the give and take of energy from the utility, which we'll talk a little bit more about next. And finally, for safety reasons, if the utility grid goes down, your solar PV array also shuts down for the time being. This is done to prevent injury to the utility line workers that may be performing repairs while the larger grid is down. Okay, so now let's dive a little bit deeper into what net metering is and how it works. Net metering basically means that any excess electricity produced by your solar system is exported to the utility grid and subtracted from the amount of electricity you import from the grid, reducing your overall electricity costs. And this works by the utility reconciles the net excess generation every billing period, so monthly usually. And actually, this varies utility to utility, but for this example, we're going to say that it reconciles it every month, and then the customer, you would receive a credit on your next energy bill at the retail utility energy rate. So it's kind of like rollover minutes on your phone. You get a little money back from the utilities, but again, it's not a lot. Let's take look a little bit deeper into what net metering is. So here's a graph that shows how you would use and produce energy over the course of the day. If you are producing more than you're using, so more yellow than blue here, you get a credit every month on your bill. And generally, you want the total area of the yellow curve to be equal to the total area of your blue curve. Net metering applies when the yellow area is greater than the blue. So if you're a net producer, you get a credit on your bill next month. However, even if you are a net consumer, meaning you use more energy from the grid than what your solar system produces, your electric bill will still be lower because you're not being charged for the solar energy that you do produce and use. So as I said, this graph shows how you would use and produce energy over the course of a day. And if you're producing more than you're using, you get that credit. And if you're using more than you're producing, you pull from the grid. Okay, so now let's take, that was a day in the life of a net metered home. This is a year in the life of a net metered home. So the same things apply. Yellow is the projected generation, with the blue being your historical usage. Some months your solar array will generate more energy than you use, and other months you'll be using the grid plus your solar array for energy consumption. But to you as a homeowner, hopefully it's a little transparent that net metering still works to save you money over the course of the year as your credit for excess production rolls over in future months. And again, as we can see in this example, this house, their array is producing 73% of their yearly energy consumption of the household. Okay, so that's the end of Solar 101. And you can kind of gather, as from what we've talked about so far, that each solar project must be tailored specifically to your property and your energy needs. And there are a lot of variables which can impact the pricing and some significantly. So let's talk about some of those. For most people, roof mounts are the ideal array amount, but that just means that location and siting where you put the panels is really important. If you do put it on your roof, you want your roof to face as close to due south as possible and be free of trees, power lines, other buildings, and any shade, anything that'll cast shade. East or west facing roofs are also workable options, although power generation is lower than south facing roofs. And also a lower sloped roof is better for east and west facing roofs if that's your option. But ideally, a south-facing roof with a with sun exposure from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. is most ideal. Yeah, those are the important things to know about location and siting. So as I said, there are a couple different types of mounts and ways that you can put your panels on. The most common being a roof-mounted array. They are an option where setback requirements, where places have setback requirements and spaces allow. But so let's talk about some of the structural considerations to think about when putting up an array on your roof. First of all, as with all solar arrays, you need to avoid shading, as we mentioned, from trees, buildings, even a light pole can impact your production value. Wind loading is typically not an issue due to the size of the gap between the array and the roof, which is only about 3 inches. This is something that the installation company takes care of and into consideration when they are designing and installing your array. And finally, the roof condition and the age of your roof can influence the viability of a roof mounted system. If your roof is within 8 years of needing to be replaced, then we recommend that you replace your roof first before putting on your solar installation. The other option is a ground mount. If your roof is not a good option, it's a good option for larger arrays or for folks who have the space on their property and don't have a good spot on top of their roof. Again, because these are fixed, they must be positioned to take advantage of the best solar window. And generally they require large unshaded areas. When a solar installer performs a site assessment, they take these things listed here into consideration to determine the cost, size, and design of the system. And so should you. So now let's talk about a few of them. These considerations are often called adders in the industry, but that doesn't mean that they are fancy extras. They are often necessary to getting panels safely and properly installed on your property. So a few points to highlight. The installers that we choose are reputable installers, and they're not going to put panels up on your roof if your roof is going to cave in because it's old or not structurally sound. Also, panels should go where you get the most light, aka the best solar window. The background image actually on this slide is a good example of a solar window. You can see the yellow spots on the houses are where the roofs get the most light, and that's where the panels should ideally go. And remember, solar panels don't have to go on your roof. They can also go in your yard or also on your garage. One frequently asked question that we get is if panels need to be cleaned or if they will break in a hailstorm. The answer to both is no, with a slight caveat to the question about the snow. So let's address that first. Weather can take care of cleaning your panels a majority of the time. Snow often slides right off the panels depending on the roof pitch. It may take a few days, but usually the next time the sun comes out, it warms up the dark panels beneath the snow, and the snow will just kind of slide off. Sometimes it'll collect along the bottom of the array, and some diligent owners will monitor for this and scrape the bottom corner of snow off with a rubber roof rake as to not damage the panels, or with a push broom. But really, it's a safety issue. If you can access it and you would like to do this, go for it. But if it's hard to get up to the roof, it's really not necessary. Because most let Mother Nature just kind of take its course and melt the snow naturally. And back to that other question about hail, your panels will rarely break in a hailstorm. The panels are rated to withstand 1-inch hail at 50 miles per hour. And this is because the silicon in your panels is so fragile that the glass covering it is very strong. And last thing of note is squirrel damage. If you have a squirrel problem now on your property, you will likely have a squirrel problem with your solar array. So squirrels like to chew on wires, but there's a solution for that. You can get something called Critter Guard, and it goes on your roof in between your roof and the solar panels, and it blocks that gap where squirrels can get in to chew on the wiring. Now let's talk about energy efficiency. I would like you to remember that the cheapest kilowatt hour is the one that you never use in the first place. Understanding your personal energy usage is an important step towards energy independence. And making energy efficiency and conservation choices in your home, like replacing old appliances with new energy efficient models, switching out old incandescent light bulbs to LED lighting, using power strips, or doing something like weatherproofing can save significant amounts of energy. Did you know that when we start to generate energy to when we use it, nearly 60% of all energy that is produced in the US is wasted due to inefficiencies. So at the household level, efficiency measures have been shown to provide 3 times the financial value as investing in solar electricity. So implementing good energy efficiency measures is an upfront economic investment that can reduce your overall energy needs, therefore reducing the size and cost of a potential PV system needed for your home or business. Um, so we've talked about a lot about energy efficiency. You don't have to make these energy efficiency improvements in order to pursue solar. However, if you do plan to make these improvements at any time in the future, let your installer know, because they can take that into consideration when designing the size of the system for you. Additionally, this year, the Green Iowa AmeriCorps will be offering free at-home energy efficiency kits to eligible households who attend our solar power hours, such as this. In addition, home energy assessments may be able to, or may be scheduled for in the fall when it's safe to do so. Additional information is available by contacting Green Iowa AmeriCorps or by just reaching out to us. Okay, so now that we've worked our way through Solar 101, we can ask ourselves, is my home well suited for solar? So we should ask ourselves things like, do I have a south-facing roof? Do I have any shade issues? When do I anticipate re-roofing? If you're really close, you may want to do both projects at the same time. Is my roof structurally sound? Is my home energy efficient? Are there any other considerations I should be thinking about, like access to credit or financing? And with that, let's move on to talk about the cost of solar in the Group Buy program. So how it works with us. The base price is a base price per watt. It's very competitive. The beauty of this program is that the more people that participate, the lower the price gets for everyone. So there are additional discounts at each of the 4 thresholds listed here: 50 kilowatts, 150 kilowatts, 300, and 500. This is in addition to the already low negotiated rate that the installer has offered to be a part of the program, which is typically 7 to 11% lower than what they typically charge to the general public. So the base price for the program this year is $2.12 per watt. And at every benchmark, it comes down another 3 or 4 cents. So as you can see here, on something like a 6 kilowatt array, the maximum additional Group Buy discount price or break in price is about $780. So it's a nice little extra incentive there. So we just talked about the base price for the program, and that's the most straightforward for any solar installation. But as we talked about before, everyone will have different factors at their site that will impact the price a little bit. We structure the program this way because the alternative, a one-size-fits-all price, would mean that some people with simple installations would be subsidizing people with more complex installations. The way we do it, however, is that everyone only pays for what they need. That said, some factors that add to the price are the size of the system and the design. Very small arrays are less expensive overall, but have a higher price per watt. The type of modules that are used can impact the price. If you would like or prefer to have premium modules or American made, that'll impact the price. What type of inverter is used and the system components. If you have a very steep or a very tall roof that requires extra safety measures and equipment, that'll impact the price. The complexity of electrical work and interconnection will impact the price. The type of roof that you have may or may not. Standard roofing types like shingles or metal are just fine, but if you have something a little more complicated like Spanish clay or wood shake or flat roofs, that will impact the price as well. And also the number of arrays that you put up can also impact the price. For example, if you put an array on your house as well as your garage, there's a little more electrical work that needs to be done. Yeah, so those are the main considerations that will impact pricing of your solar array. So now let's take a look at a typical installation. Depending on module wattage, 25 panels is all it takes to create a 7.2 kilowatt array, which is what we're looking at here. Of course, a south-facing roof is preferable, but if you don't have adequate south-facing roof space, or if your south-facing roof space is too shady, adequate production can be generated from east and or west-facing arrays as well. But let's go back to that example here. Average sizes of arrays really vary from market to market. For example, in Cedar Rapids, the average size might be about 6 kilowatts, but in places where housing stock is a little less dense and homes have bigger roofs, you might see a 7 or 8 kilowatt array as an average. And also, actual electricity offset is determined by a customer's electric consumption history. And what the solar installer will do is they estimate your electric offset by comparing your historical electric consumption to the size of your array. So if we take that 7.2 kilowatt array and we apply some of our Lynn & Johnson group by program pricing, we can see kind of how that shakes out. Because each quote is tailored to meet each customer's specific needs, there might be adders that increase the cost of your array. But we've, for this example, we have factored in a couple here, as you can see. So the adders to this quote are for a 2-story roof and with a high pitch. And this customer has also opted in for the inverter monitoring. With the base price of $212 per watt, their quoted price to start with for the program is $16,685. But when we factor in things like the federal tax credit and the hopefully the Iowa state tax credit, we'll talk about that in a minute, it drops the price down considerably to $10,000. So let's talk a little bit about incentives, which we just mentioned here. First, let's talk about the federal tax incentive. It's called the Federal Residential Renewable Energy Tax Credit, and it's open to all homeowners, regardless of what state you live in. This tax credit covers up to 26% of qualified expenditures, which includes labor, installation, and interconnection wiring. You must own the house, but you don't need to live in it. It doesn't have to be your prime residence. And this tax credit has been extended through 2022, at which point it will gradually decrease. And if you don't have a tax appetite in the first year as a homeowner, you can roll it into the second year to take full advantage of the 26% credit. And so if you install solar and get other incentives or rebates, you get 26% back on the final cost to you out of pocket in the form of a tax credit. This federal business energy investment credit also applies to commercial, agriculture, and industrial taxpayers. It works a little differently than the residential tax credit, but you can locate all of these additional details on the Federal Desire, that's DSIRE.com website. There is also a state level incentive, but that's currently in limbo until the Iowa legislature acts. Currently, solar advocates are working to decouple the state's incentives from this federal incentive and extend it for 10 years. However, without this action, the state program phases out at the end of the year, and the current wait list is over 2 years long. So this bill is being brought up in House committee this first week in April, and the legislative session runs through the end of April. So if this is something that's important to you, seeing this tax credit extended and decoupled, let your legislator know. Next, let's talk about home values. As residential solar installations have continued to increase, the real estate market has begun to recognize the value of solar. In a recent study by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, they found that homes with solar sold faster and with a higher value than non-solar homes. In another study done by the Berkeley National Laboratories, they found that buyers were willing to pay $15,000 more for a home with an average size solar array than homes without solar. So, of course, this number will vary depending on local housing markets, but it's clear that having solar on your home is not detrimental to the sale of your house. And lastly, I would like to note that your property taxes should not increase as a result of going solar. And in fact, nothing about your solar array is taxed, not even sales tax. So we've talked a lot about the financial implications of a solar array, but let's not forget the environmental implications as well, because it's about more than just savings, really. An average solar system has an incredible impact on the environment, and we can see and follow the following benefits in this example here of a 5 kilowatt array, of what a 5 kilowatt array can have over 25 years. It's like planting almost 4,000 trees. It's like diverting uh, 500 tons of waste, excuse me, from a landfill. And it diverts almost 80 tons of coal from being burned. So really it has a large impact. Lastly, let's talk about financing. If you want to finance your solar array, you can always use a home equity line of credit, but there are other options as well. The MREA is a member of the Clean Energy Credit Union, which was founded in 2017 for the purpose of helping folks get renewable energy. And you can learn more about this by speaking with us after this presentation. So what does it look like to get your solar installed once you've decided that you want one? So you take your contract after you've gotten your site assessment, and once it's signed, the solar installer, our selected solar installer for our program this year is Eagle Point Solar. They will submit the permits that are necessary to get you going. Once those are approved, they will get you on the construction schedule, which is about 8 to 9 weeks out after you've signed your contract. And then lastly, what you need to get is a final inspection and approval from the utility to turn it on. So you're really looking at about 3 to 4 months after you sign your contract to being up and running. So if you are interested, what you need to do is go to our website and sign up for a free site assessment. The solar installer will contact you and ask you for your past 12 months of electrical usage to get the ball rolling on starting to design a system for you. After that, they'll work with you to design your system, and you can decide whether you'd like to move forward or not. And remember, this is a limited time offering. So if you would like to participate, make sure to sign up by August 31st this year. And finally, as I mentioned in the beginning, the MREA is an education-based nonprofit out of Wisconsin. Together with partners around the Midwest, we work to expand renewable energy adoption through educational events, renewable energy training, and innovative programs like Grow Solar. So no matter the program, our mission is to promote renewable energy, energy efficiency, and sustainable living through education and demonstration. We are a member-based organization, and our members have been leading the charge and fueling the mission of MREA since 1990. If you do go solar through the program, Eagle Point Solar will gift you a membership to the MREA for a year. However, if you don't go solar through the program, we encourage you to explore the benefits that you would get from becoming a member and help grow our programs. So that's all I have for you today. I really appreciate you spending the time with me today during this Earth Week and this Earth Fest, and we appreciate the opportunity to share our information about solar with you. So yes, if you'd like more information, please visit our website, growsolar.com or .org, excuse me, and find our program, or send me an email here at marta@midwestrenew.org. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.